What's going on, guys? So this video is going to be about owning an exotic car. I got a lot of questions about, hey, what's the maintenance like? What's the yearly cost like? What's the aspect of terms? How long do you have to own an exotic car for it to be worthwhile? Different questions, some that don't kind of have any relevance to owning an exotic car, but I'd rather explain the whole situation anyways, just because it's a tricky subject that a lot of people don't understand. So what I did is use myself as an example and the R8, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna break down like the ownership cost of the car. So I bought the car in 2016 of July, and so it's been pretty much more than 4 years, almost 4 years and some months. So what I did is I compiled a list, and I'm gonna go through obviously the upkeep and maintenance on the car and what the car required over those 4 years so far. I purchased a vehicle with very low kilometers from a gentleman. It had like under 15,000 kilometers on it, and so I did pay a premium at that point for the spec I wanted and for the car's price. But that comes in the term, with the owning an exotic car, trying to look for an exotic car and trying to actually figure out what you want. You will end up paying a little bit more for something that you like. It's going to happen. You don't think it's going to happen till it will. So what I did, I have on my notes pad, I wrote down everything that I've compiled throughout the 4 years in terms of maintenance, mods, cost of the mods, and the biggest problem with listing the mods as an expense is that it's my choice to do them, right? So when you list mods on your cars, it's an extra. It's not gonna ever increase the value of your car. There are OEM plus mods that very few buyers will pay for, but relatively speaking, mods don't increase value. So it's better to either take the mods off when you sell the car or keep the ones that are OEM plus. So I'll go over about that. I'll go over the examples of the OEM plus. So anyways, I bought the car in 2016. And in 2016 I paid a $139 plus tax for it. So it had about, I think, 15,000 kilometers on it, and so it came out to about $151 after taxes. Prime reason I paid that price at that time, I paid about 10,000-15,000 over, was because particularly this was the example I wanted. I was searching for a year, 1 year of continuous search, and I just couldn't find the example. I wanted a V10, I wanted red interior, I wanted full carbon package, I wanted a gated manual, and I wanted low kilometers, well kept, just primarily a good example of a vehicle that I would want to keep for a long time. So for the upkeep of the car in the last 4 years, primarily it's been brakes and rotors. So it's been regular oil changes. I usually do about 2 a year. That's what I end up doing regarding the months or the kilometers. And it's been tires, and there has been other expenses which I'll go over first, but I'll go over these three main things in the beginning. So when I first bought the car, I spent about $2,600 on 4 brand new tires for the OEM rims. So I'm talking in a way where if you were never to mod this car, it's what would probably be the cost of the car. So it was about, you could say, $2,600 to purchase those tires. It was a Michelin Super Sports at that time. It was 19-inch, so 19 by 9, 19 by, I believe it was 11 in the back. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it was. After that, I had all the PPI done on the car, and just check over anything particular. From 2016 to I keep getting my dates mixed up, by the way, because 2014 I owned another Audi. So if I make that mistake over and over again, it's because of that. So in 2016 I owned So I bought the car and I owned it for about a year and a half before I had to get some work done on it. So basically, the battery, I had to get the battery replaced because at that time in 2016, it was already a 6-year-old car. So the battery for the car was around, you could say $500 from, I actually had to buy it straight from Audi. It was just the easiest way to get it. There wasn't any cost savings in the battery that the car takes. It primarily just, again, it's around $500. So $500 for that. Then you're looking at the cost of ownership per year for maintenance. So you're looking at oil changes. Oil changes approximately for the car, you're anywhere between $350 to $500 depending on where you go, dealer, private, whatnot. So I said I do 2 of those, okay? So you're looking at around $700 a year just for oil changes, which sounds crazy, but it's not an easy task. It has so many drain bolts. It's not one. It's a little bit complicated, and it comes with the territory. Secondly, what I did, I have it listed here. I did. So what happened was, after owning the vehicle for 1.5 years, around mid 2017. Going into 2018, I had one of my shocks leak, the magnetic ride control shocks leak. So those shocks, most people that own the first gen R8s don't go back to them, just because what happens is those shocks, they end up pretty much dying out who knows when. Sometimes people have them for 30,000-40,000 kilometers, or sometimes the shocks die out at like 15. So what I did was I ended up going the coilover route. So that for me is a maintenance cost because I had to replace a part that had failed on the car. So that's about, you could say, $3,000 as well. Because it's so long ago, I gotta find the receipts, but it's around that. So that's one thing. Second, which I haven't had yet, the AC condensers. So on the V8s, the engine needs to be pulled out for the AC condensers. For the V10s, the engine, they have a way to get the AC condenser out. I haven't had the problem, but I've had to switch the actual control panel for the climate control. And so that was around $1,800. And there is a pressure switch problem as well, which isn't that common, but it could also happen. But I don't know why my control switch panel, for some reason, it just died out. So it was about $1,800 for that. And you're looking at those 2 things in the first 2 years ownership. My brakes and pads were pretty good because the car had such low kilometers. Now, coming into 2020, brakes and rotors. I mean, depending on how much you drive the car. For me, after four years, okay, of owning the car, I finally had to do the brakes and rotors, because average, honestly, I've put like 6,000 kilometers, 7,000 max on the car. I've done rallies and stuff, which is primarily the main kilometers, or just some drives. But the brakes and rotors for the car can range anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000. Again, it's about finding the parts. Dealerships, don't ask, because they'll charge you $12, $13. So I would say I'd go the private route, and anywhere between $5,000-$6,000 you can get a nice pair of brakes and rotors and everything done. So that was a very important cost that I had to incur, and it was just a regular maintenance occurrence. Now, the car is a 2010. So my thinking is, and it should be for everybody that owns any sort of German vehicle, fluid flushes. So I would do them every 5 years. I know it says kilometers wise, but I never reach the kilometers. So what I do is every 5 years I do the fluid flushes. When I bought the car had low kilometers and the fluids were good, and had been 6 years. So in 2020, last year, I had all the fluids flushed, from brake fluid to engine oil to the axles, the differentials, everything, and that was about $1,600. While they were doing the fluid flush, they found a serpentine belt needed to be replaced. So it was kind of squeaking. It is technically, what you can say, 11-year-old car now. 2010. So 11 years, you know, that's not bad at all. So I had the serpentine belt, I don't know how to say it, but I had that replaced as well. That was including in the fluid flush, and as I said, that was around $1,600-$1,700. So cost-wise, the car has been okay. If you're looking at it from a perspective of ownership, if you drive these cars a lot, the main three problems on the platform is the magnetic shocks, the shocks that nobody usually goes back to, the AC condenser, and there's a AC condenser switch. These are three main problems that I know about. I fixed. Well, one of them is done, so coilover. So when the AC I'm ready for it. You know, I'm prepared. Now the clutch and throwout bearing, I would do all that in one shot. So I wouldn't do the clutch alone, and so that approximately would run about 8,000. I haven't had to go there yet. I'm thinking the clutch will last, which is insane, but it'll last up to at least 100,000. So I got time for that. So I haven't had to replace a clutch or anything like that. In regards to maintenance, that's pretty much been all. All the other stuff that I've done to the car has been pretty much modifications. But then, you know, lately last year I decided to tone it to the point where I bring the car back to OEM plus. So I've done the GT wing, the race exhaust from Velocity AP. I did the carbon canards in the front, the RS grille. I did 20-inch rims. I personally don't track the car anymore, so I just personally find 20-inch rims are better on the car, but you know, some people prefer 19s. Again, it's all your preference, but I wanted to have aftermarket rims that look kind of a little better than the OEM setup. I did paint protection film. So, paint protection film. The whole car was covered in it. I took it off and I did the front only. I did the front bumper and the front hood. And the mirrors and the side blades are done already as well. Now, my thinking on that is, it's an 11-year-old car. The aspect of protecting the car, I understand, but you know, it was protected for 10 years, and what I'm gonna spend to protect the whole car again isn't viable for what it is. So the front bumper and the front hood is what primarily takes most of the damage from rock chips. So I would say the front of the car is something that you should protect primarily if you're not too anal. Or too OCD. The rest of the, I mean, if you're buying a car that's over $200,000, I would do the whole car anyways. But you know, primarily anything around the 120, 130, anything below $150,000 mark, I would do the front, the mirrors, you know, the high impact zone areas. So yeah, then I did the carbon fiber steering wheel from ASK Carbon, and if you notice the way I did the carbon fiber wheel, it was primarily OEM plus. I did red stitching, carbon fiber on the top, none of that LCD screen stuff. I'm not personally about it. I don't think it's OEM. And I did a perforated leather, not Alcantara. Even though the car's roof liner is Alcantara, I did a perforated leather because of the wear and tear. The Alcantara does not last. Yeah, so far the maintenance on the vehicle has not been too bad, but it does require things that are preventative maintenance. So like fluid flushes, like spending almost $2,000 on flushing all the fluids on the car. You know, it might seem like a crazy idea, but again, you got to realize the car has to have everything refreshed. You know, so most people that own exotics, they don't keep exotics for too long. If you're trying to keep an exotic car for longer than at least 3 to 4 years, do preventative maintenance. If it's a keeper, preventative maintenance is your best bet. Keep the little things in check. Once the little things are in check, your car will always give you back a positive response. I have to do carbon cleaning as well, around 80 to 100,000 kilometers. The car is okay so far. But again, these are things I know that are coming up. In terms of you know, how you get into an exotic car, when you should do it, I would say it's a matter of preference. You know, there's so many ways to structure a deal. You have to know what you want before buying the vehicle. You can't change your mind halfway and say, oh, I mean, you can, but you're gonna lose a lot of money. So if you're trying to keep the car, you can structure the deal in a way where you keep the car. One thing about exotic cars is most exotic cars besides, there are certain brands like Maseratis and Bentleys that do depreciate crazy. If you buy something that's very depreciated and bottomed out, you're very unlikely to lose a lot of money if you keep the kilometers down. But again, cars are meant to be driven, so don't buy a car and not drive it. It doesn't make any sense unless it's like a collectible $500,000, $400,000 car. You know, it makes more sense that way. So yeah, if you're trying to own an exotic car, the best way I would say is try to see what you want with the car, how long you plan on keeping it. Structure the deal in that way. You can do lease to buy, you can lease the vehicle. Leasing is only good in certain aspects. So, you know, it's pretty much, you're not able to mod the car, you're not able to, you're able to mod the car, but you have to, you know, remove the mods, because if you're returning the car at the end of the term, there are very few companies that will allow you to put a lot of kilometers on the car. So it's all a perception of why you want the car. You want the car for a business. You want the car for your personal self. If it's for a business, you know it's more of a showpiece. It's to represent your business. It's to get the clientele coming in. But if it's for your own self, try to understand that, you know, leasing and whatnot makes sense in certain aspects. Paying $3,000 to $4,000 a month for a lease to just return it at the end doesn't make any sense. That's after 4 years, do the math. That's $36,000 a year, pretty much, right? So, do you really want to waste that money into a car? Or, I mean, if you have the disposable income, if you're like someone like me who, you know, I'm not, you know, rich in the sense of money falling from the trees. You want to keep the car, and why is because at the end of the car's term, the car's value is approximately almost worth what you bought it for. Even if you do lose a lot of money, it'll never be as much as what you're gonna pretty much go give the car back for. In the GTA, a lot of the exotics, their turnover rate's so high, if you notice that. And the reason why is because a lot of people here, you know, they buy them and keep them for a year or two. They're okay with the aspect of paying the monthly and then just switching them out. No problem. I mean, it's personal preference. You do that. It's all, as I said, an aspect of how you take the car and what you take it as. If you're trying to buy a vehicle that you've dreamed for so long, make sure you get your PPI down. If you're trying to keep it for a long time, make sure you check it over thoroughly. Make sure that the owner knows what they were doing. The maintenance was done proper, right? Anyway, so now, in terms of modifications, the modifications for the car, if I list the modification on the car, it'll go over $20,000+. But that's my subjective opinion on what I wanted to do with the car, right? Keeping it stock, it's, as I said, it's the maintenance, it's the if you have payments per month, insurance, upkeep, you know. So upkeep and maintenance are two different things in my opinion. Maintenance is mechanical, upkeep is like physical upkeep, like, you know, washing, interior detail, making sure that things like paint and you're looking at, you know, the body work is in good proportion when you look at it, like it looks good. You have a car that's value is that high, you don't want to be like scuffs and bruises all over, right? But anything else add-on wise, it's all up to you. So yeah, owning an exotic car is not the hard part, it's the maintenance, it's the upkeep. So know that before you get into it, know that before you know, budget it out. And so always budget about, I would say, 15 to 20% of the value of the vehicle if you're trying to keep it for forever, at least. So that's my thinking on that. And yeah, and I'll be making more videos. It's winter time right now. I don't have time due to work as well, but this, I sort of set up a little thing to make videos here and give a little bit, you know, explanation on what it takes to upkeep on a car that, you know, you've dreamed of. So hope you guys liked the video, and I'll keep making some more and talk about different things and aspects of cars. And maybe the next video I'll talk about you know, what I would suggest and how to structure deals, or in a way where it makes sense financially, and financial sense is always the best sense. Okay guys, thank you, bye.